The Biden family has a very mysterious financial arrangement. Although we are finding out more and more information, Congress continues to do depositions with the people who understand how the money flows in. And they're getting some answers. For more on this, I want to turn to Margot Cleveland now. She's a senior legal correspondent for the Federalist, and she's been writing about that this week. Margot, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much, Vince.
Okay, so I've been kind of obsessing over Hunter Biden's relationship with this Hollywood attorney, Kevin Morris, because I think that's one of the most fascinating elements of this whole saga. What are we learning this week?
Sure. So Mr. Morris was questioned by the House, I believe it was yesterday, and the House sent out some kind of top-line takeaways. And a few of the things that he noted was that he had purchased 2 paintings from Hunter before Hunter started going pro with the paintings, having a gallerist. He also helped pay for a lot of his living expenses, and according to Mr. Morris, these are loans, but they're not due until after the next election, 2025, and he may or may not decide to forgive those. We also learned that he had purchased, and this we had gotten from other sources too, I believe it was $875,000 of artwork, and this was actually directly from the gallery that Hunter Biden was selling out of Soho, his artwork. So it's, like you said, it's a rather intriguing scenario that we have with this individual. And it's kind of a fascinating side story. One of the things that I fear, though, is we're going to forget the really troubling pay-to-play with foreign officials and Joe Biden's direct role in it if we get too sucked down this role. But
Sure.
It's definitely intriguing and also makes you wonder of, were they really keeping the books so well? Did Hunter Biden report the revenue from those 2 pictures that he sold back before he had the gallerist? And did they withhold the taxes on this interest-free loan? So there's a lot of tax issues that come up as well.
Definitely. And the IRS whistleblowers said behind closed doors that they were very concerned about this. They thought that this could have amounted to a campaign finance violation because Kevin Morris rolls into the Biden family's life in December of 2019 when he meets Hunter Biden at a donor event. And all of a sudden now all the media refer to them as friends. But boy, this guy is quite a friend. He's given some $5 to $7 million to the Bidens over that time frame. He's calling it loans, but then he turns around and buys art from a guy who's never produced art before, giving ungodly sums of money to the Bidens. And in a way, it strikes me, Margot, that he's basically clearing all of that loan debt by simply, giving them more money in the form of buying the artwork, right?
Right. So the artwork angle of it definitely leaves the sense that he's purchasing it at greatly inflated rates in order to allow Hunter Biden to clear the loan debt. And something else that you said about the campaign finance angle, that this whole connection came about when Morris was introduced to Hunter Biden at a fundraiser in the winter of 2020, so right before the election.
19, that would be. 19.
Was it?
Yeah, it was December 2019 when the 2 met at a donor event. And then...
I was thinking it was 2020, but I'll have to go back and check my notes. But it was definitely during the campaign when they met.
Right.
And actually, nope, you're right, because the email I'm thinking of came in February of 2020 when Morris somehow decided he was going to help Hunter get things cleared up, and he's actually emailing his advisor and some tax attorneys saying, we've got this huge political problem. We've got to get these tax returns in. And less than 2 weeks later, Hunter's guys filed the belated 2017 and 2018 tax returns. Didn't pay the overdue taxes yet. That was something that Morris did, I would say, the following year. It was sometime after that the taxes were paid. But absolutely that there's something that just had a big whiff that he went from meeting him to all of a sudden financing him. And, it's his money. He earned it, Mr. Morris. If he wants to do that, as long as he complies with the laws, that's fine, but the Bidens have to comply with the laws, too.
Well, that's true.
And given that they haven't, it makes everybody look twice at all of this.
Well, to resolve, though, a massive political issue for the Bidens, the precedent that the left has set is that if you use your money to try and resolve something that could impact you during the campaign, that amounts to a campaign finance violation. So the example I'm thinking of is the non-disclosure agreement that Donald Trump had with Stormy Daniels. They went after Michael Cohen for being involved in that, and they said he committed a campaign finance violation for giving her money in exchange for her not claiming in public that she had some sort of illicit relationship with Trump. And
then I think it was also misreporting it on the documents. So absolutely. And this really just shows, again, it's a double standard every way, shape, or form that you look at this. And you've got Morris sitting there next to Hunter when he shows up at Congress, refuses to abide by the subpoena and puts on this big show. But, he's a Hollywood attorney, so he knows how to craft a scene and make sure that, or based on his associates, how to craft a scene, which is what Hunter was doing when he came to the Hill.
Right, but at its core point, and you're right about, we shouldn't get too distracted by some of the ancillary dramas in this saga, because fundamentally it is about the extent to which Joe Biden sold out the country for his family's enrichment. Absolutely. But This character, Kevin Morris, he's the fixer for the Biden family. This idea that you can say he's a friend of Hunter Biden's is, I don't know how any journalist with a straight face can write that and just credulously believe it. They literally met at a donor event in the heat of the presidential election, and he came to the rescue, and there's emails, as you point out, where he says he's trying to resolve this for political purposes. So I don't, again,
and
the whole thing is
you
wild.
add to that what I believe it was Gary Shapley, one of the whistleblowers, said is, if you say that Hunter Biden paid his back taxes, no, he didn't pay them. Somebody else paid him for him. That's not him taking responsibility and paying his taxes. And you have to wonder if the fact that the back taxes were paid had any implications or indications of how they were able to at least originally get that sweetheart deal in place.
Right.
And that it would have been much more problematic criminally. But, we're there now because Hunter is fighting it in California. He's fighting it in Delaware. And he's really got a lot there. I do wonder, though, if the testimony between Kevin Morris and also the art dealer, if that leads to more threads pulling of tax money not reported. Did Hunter report those two paintings he had sold before? The paintings that Morris purchased right from the shop, instead of paying the shop for the $875, what he did is he actually cut him the commission of 40% and supposedly was going to then give Hunter the rest of it, which probably was a loan forgiveness. But did Hunter report that? So I think that we're going to keep seeing more and more come up as more people testify.
Yes, I would think so. Another big and interesting piece of this saga is that Kevin Morris is the man to whom Hunter Biden divested his stake in a Chinese private equity firm. So Hunter owned this 10% stake, I think, in BHR Partners in China. And the New York Post kept hassling the White House, hey, when are you gonna divest? When is Hunter gonna divest? And they'd be like, oh, ask Hunter. And finally he does divest to Kevin Morris, the guy who's now financing his entire lifestyle. So, it seems to me that the scandal here is only thickening, Margot.
Right, and I do agree. It's an example of a fixer as opposed to a friend. And who knows, maybe the fixer has become a friend over the time period. I mean, I'd be pretty friendly with the guy going around paying for everything for me and fixing it when I leave rental properties in disarray and taking care of the Chi-Com problem for me. So, but it's the classic example of an outside fixer coming in, and it's just part and parcel of how the Bidens do business, that someone is going to take care of the problems. But again, I want to remind everyone, we already know that Joe Biden directly profited from what Jim Biden and Hunter Biden were doing. We saw the checks. We know that is there. And that's not enough to wake people up. I really don't know what will.
Yeah, they really should. And so kind of the tired line from the media that there's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything wrong or that his family benefited in any way from his time in government, I think that was long ago put to rest, Margot.
It was long ago put to rest. They keep moving what the goalposts are, but it really comes down to they don't care because it's their guy.
Yeah, and so they'll allow it. Amazing. One more thing, if you can help me assess the politics of this. I'm not sure if you have an opinion on it, but I do wonder about whether or not actually impeaching Joe Biden is a good idea politically. Do you have any thoughts about that? Obviously, it strikes me that he deserves it, but is it the right thing to do in an election year?
I don't think from a political standpoint that it is the right thing to do, but I do wish that we would have the evidence brought out and made even more clear, because there's still a lot there. We have a lot, but there is so much more that we do not know. We still don't know who Grassley's whistleblower is, who's totally different than the IRS. And to remind you that only the Hunter Biden part is only half the scandal. The other half of the scandal is the DOJ and the FBI and what they did with their power, which was to protect candidate Biden.
Yes.
And then later President Biden.
So I'm sorry, just to double back over to the Chuck Grassley thing, though, because I want to make sure I understand this. You mentioned that we don't know who his source is, but if I remember correctly, Chuck Grassley's finding was that FD 1023 form that declared that Joe Biden was definitely involved in a bribery scheme in Ukraine. Am I right about that?
Right. And that, it appears, came from a different whistleblower that Grassley has, who also spoke about closing down some 10, 20 sources that had been involved with or somehow knew about things going on with the Bidens. So Grassley has an entire wing of the Biden enterprise that has not yet been revealed. And Grassley's perspective is not on what Joe did wrong, Joe did that was wrong. Grassley is focusing on the FBI and the DOJ. And that, again, is something that has not yet been revealed. That we can continue to move on even though it's an election year. And from a political perspective, I think that would actually hold a lot of weight.
Yes.
Because conservatives know how weaponized they are, and the average Joe and Joanne, they understand it as well, but they don't, I think, know the half of it. So I think that the impeachment inquiry should continue to pull this information together.
So one last piece. So Hunter Biden is set to testify in a closed-door deposition, supposedly on February 28th. We'll see if it actually comes to pass. But the House Republicans have also indicated that a number of Biden family associates are going to testify, including someone called Mervyn Yan. There's Eric Schwerin, Rob Walker, Joe Langston, and very interestingly, for the first time in a long time, Tony Bobulinski is set for a deposition with House investigators. Do you think that this will be a revelatory series of weeks ahead?
I do, and especially Eric, who was the money man. He knew where all the money was coming and going. I think that will help expose quite a bit of information. Tony, as you know, knew a lot of the Joe Biden being involved piece of it.
Right.
But we already know that. It'd be good to have some more to it. What I really want to see more of is the financial records. And that is that's the part that's hard to refute. You can't, well, I mean, you can ignore it and say there's no evidence, but it isn't like witnesses where you can say they were wrong, they have a vendetta, whatever it happens to be. When you have the bank documents backing it up, that is a lot harder to write off.
All right, Margot Cleveland over at the Federalist, just one of the best on this subject. Thank you so much for digging in and sharing your insights with us today. Thank you, Margot. Good to talk to you.